All right, I'm gonna speak on this issue of trans athletes and equal competition because equal competition is what I believe in. And personally, you know, I would go about, creating equal competition by any means. And so just with that, it doesn't matter what I say or anybody else will say. When you're speaking on this subject, somebody will get offended. Somebody out there is not gonna like what I say. Somebody might like what I say, but it ain't necessarily about, just what I say anyway, because I'm only one person and I can't speak for everybody else. But I'm going to get the long and short of it. I feel like, you have the real, transgender individuals, as in those who actually, go through the surgeries. They go through with, taking the proper hormones and, things like that, to where even when you do all that, you're not necessarily going to be 100% anyway, because of, the gender that you were born with, that 1% is automatically taken away from you. That's just something that I believe, most, if not all, transgender individuals accept anyway. But that is just reality. And so with today's technology, even with the best technology right now, it's understood that you'll never be 100%. You do have other species, like amphibians and other types of animals that they can transition themselves, but as humans, we can't. No mammal that I know of can actually do that. That's just something that I think, if it hadn't happened already, all of the trans community, should acknowledge if they hadn't already. I believe that that they did. I think it's already understood. And so as far as trans athletes participating in sports, I mean, to be honest with you, there's a side of me that I don't want to say I just don't care, but when I say I don't care, it's more like to each his own. And I'm just trying not to come out in a negative way when I say that, but I don't really care. So if you were born a male and you feel that you should be a female, then, and this is where I kind of draw the line at the same time. So, just listen. And you want to make that transition, you got to do it all the way. You got to be 100% with it. You got to be 100% committed to be 99%, of that gender that you choose to be. Not 75%, not 50%. You can't do this halfway. Because what I want to do is kind of weed out these so-called wannabe transgender individuals. Nothing against them, but I feel like, if you really feel like you're a woman, then you need to be a woman. You'll never know what it's really like to be a real woman anyway, to go through what they truly go through. And that's just for real. But for those who want to, wake up one day and 2 weeks later you just decide you want to be a woman, and therefore you're just entitled to compete amongst other women, that ain't right. That ain't right, and that's really because of your biological makeup. You can't help, the way you was born. You can't. This is not, me trying to talk down to any individual, but it's time that you see reality for what it really is. And again, if you use that individual who went through all of the, I'm just going to say, the protocols. You've gotten the surgeries, and you've taken the, all of the different hormone treatments. And I'm talking like at a very young age. And see, just as I'm speaking on this right now, this is going to bring up so many different other issues, and at the same time, other liabilities. This sort of thing is really a tangled web, a web of problems that are going to create new problems. Because even just what I'm suggesting, go all out 100%. I'm talking about if you're going to participate as a man with the other females, at what age should you start, transitioning yourself all the way? When would it be appropriate? When is it appropriate for the parents to say, you know what, I'm going to allow or want for my child to be the gender that, he or she wants to be? I could say out loud that it would depend on the person. That's the safe answer. But as far as how society is going to look at you and judge you, no matter which direction you turn, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong. And again, I'm trying to be careful as I possibly can, but again, it doesn't matter what I say. Somebody's going to agree with me. I know this, but at the same time, this is what I'm saying is grossly offensive. There is a side of me that wants to sympathize. That feeling of being left out, being singled out. I know a little bit about that, but not like those who identify differently. And what I mean for myself, I know what it's like to try out for the team, and I just don't make it. And there was another time I was actually on the team, and I got cut. I was simply cut just because they felt I wasn't good enough. And I've gotten my opportunity again to prove myself. But just that feeling of not being a part of the team, no longer being a part of the team, that's not a good feeling for anybody. And so just to think that because you decide that you want to fulfill some personal needs, and now you want to make that next step to join in, and you just flat out deny it. Denial is not, it's no joke. And so let's just put that out there. Let's put that into perspective. You want people to accept you. You expect that. But, society is in its own way, is both very biased and unbiased at the same time. Depends on the crowd you're around. And, again, how do you go about doing this sort of thing? You transition and you're able to be a part of something. That's, obviously not your original gender. That's going to be a touchy subject for years to come. I mean, there's no other way to explain that. There's no other way for me to say it, But let's just do like a little experiment, like a little test study right now. You're, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 years old, and you're already showing signs that, you want to, you don't feel that you're the gender that you are. You're a little girl who strongly believes that you should be a little boy. And so your parents decide to say, you know what? I need to give this little girl what she wants. Now, this is vice versa. I'm speaking both ways. You can be that little boy who wants to be a little girl. But let's just say you go through with it. You go all out. You do the surgeries. And I'm no doctor. I don't know how dangerous it is to do such a surgery at such a young age. But let's just say it happens. You take off your hormone blockers and you do the treatment. And so now all of a sudden you're the gender that you want to be. Now, just from how can I even say it? Just from that standpoint, I wake up on one side of my own bed, and I wake up and I see this for myself. I'm going to say, you know what? As long as that individual is consistent, all right? As long as that person, you do everything to your new gender. You do everything that that normal gender would do, right? You do everything. And you want to participate in a girl's sport, you should not really have as much liabilities to go with that. The only thing about you as an athlete is that you were once born of the opposite sex. That's about it. But the part about you going through all those different procedures at such a young age, there's a risk that, I've seen it, and this is only because, I'm watching some of these reality TV shows, and, I read some of these other, I'm just going to say testimonies. You've actually had, some of these kids to later regret what was done. And some may have even blamed their parents for allowing them to go through with this. Because when you're, 4 and 5 years old, it's already understood that you're not fully developed mentally. You making the correct decisions, amongst society at 4 and 5 years old, nobody survives like that. And so not only, those kids will later grow up, I don't want to say will, but some have grew up to regret what was done. Some may have, like I said, they may have blamed their parents for allowing this to happen. And guess who else is going to be judging? It's going to be, all of the outsiders. I mean, to be honest, it'll be people like myself. I'm just going to shake my head and say, I feel bad for that kid. Even I would question, hey, why did it happen? Things like that. And that would depend on what side of the bed I would wake up on personally, And I don't like to do too much judging. But, that's going to be the risk a person will take. And again, this entire process of getting to that point, it leads to a lot of different problems. Now, this is something I'm going to bring up. People talk about this, and I'm going to bring it up. I might as well, apologize right now, just for, saying this, what I'm about to say. Some people say the whole idea of an individual wanting to be the opposite sex is a mental problem. Some people say it's a mental disability. And if that really is the case, that's probably one of the only, I'm going to say, medical sicknesses that's not really official. Sometimes I personally do question if that is, in that category, that could be challenged from a mental standpoint. But then that spills over to, what about, those who are gay and lesbian and things like that. And personally, I have too many friends who I would never judge in that way. I look at them as people. I look at them as, some of them have the same taste in whatever it is that I like to do. They like to do it too. The only difference is just their orientation. And so I'm confronting this the best way I can. One can raise these questions. I'm not going to sit there and say, Again, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a doctor. I did not go to school for that. But these are just questions that, again, it's out there. It's been put out there, and I don't think that being trans, specifically, is a topic that is mainstream. In terms of it being a mental disability. Because if it is, let's just put it out there. If it is, how do you treat it? What steps would you take then? Can you really force someone who truly believes that that they belong, I'm gonna say, in another place? Okay. How do you convince them otherwise? Because what's the difference if someone thinks that they really should be a different animal? Now, about these folks who, and I don't even want to disrespect them, but some of those, I've seen a lady who's gotten several different surgeries on top of tattoos, and what they'll do, they'll pretty much reshape their face to look like, well, this one particular person, that is, she reshaped her face to make herself look like a cat or maybe a tiger or something like that. And the tattoos she had, like, pretty much all over her body, they were basically tiger stripes. And I may have even, if I can remember correctly, she may have had other parts that was like leopard skin, but it was tattoos, and her teeth were sharpened, and it looked like she even had like longer fangs. I'm not sure how she was able to pull that off, but she did. And so you look at her, she does kind of resemble, at least, just a big cat that can just simply walk on, two legs. And so, what do you call her? A trans animal? I mean, and does she have a mental disability? Or maybe she's just very creative. But unfortunately, I can see a lot of people pointing fingers and paying attention to her for the wrong reasons. And so, a lot of these topics, these topics can be very dangerous. It can make a person feel very uncomfortable. Just knowing that a person, other people can look at them in that way. And so for those who are, truly the true transgender individuals out there, they face a mountain of challenges. They really do. And I do feel for them. It goes beyond, just trying to play your favorite sport amongst, I'll just say, your new peers. And, by you being in grade school still, middle school, high school, that is a challenge. Now, Alabama was one of the latest states to implement, that student athletes can only participate with the gender that they've been assigned at birth. The only reason why I would side with that is because of equal competition. Again, that's what I said at the very beginning. Equal competition is just, my definition of equal competition. It doesn't necessarily, this is something you can't really look up. If you were to do a search on equal competition, as two words combined, you won't find an actual definition. So here is mine. Equal competition is two of the same competing. you know, of equal strengths, equal abilities, okay, and also of the same gender as well. So it's not necessarily a matter of the sport, but if you have two females, they weigh the same, similar height, similar skill sets, and hopefully even the experience may or may not necessarily have to be the same, but that is equal competition to me. The same with two males, same height, size, weight, similar skill sets, and obviously the drive to compete will always equal out. And that part, that doesn't matter your gender. See, there's a reason why in multiple sports you have different weight classes, you have different divisions. Because I could see somebody saying that, these, these divisions and, these different conferences, it's possibly discrimination. Somebody can actually say that. But again, I'm just going to throw something out there like boxing. It's a reason why you have different weight classes. It's not to necessarily discriminate somebody's weight. Nobody's calling somebody, fat or anything like that. But if you were to have a guy who's 225 pounds versus a guy who's 160 pounds, there's going to be a difference in punching power. It's going to be a weight advantage. It's just the way it is. So it kind of breaks down. So my definition of equal competition, it kind of branches out that far. But what if, all that stuff was just, thrown out of the window? We just let anybody in. We just let anybody compete the way people would want to compete. It would be, to me, it would be rather chaotic. About the best way I can put it. You can't necessarily scale, who's the better athlete at, during any given match or any given game. Because you're going to have one person who is physically dominant over, let's just say you decide to have a little smaller league branch out. And, not only the league is genderless, it's ageless. It doesn't matter your height, weight, size. And you can imagine you have this top level athlete who should be playing professionally. And let's say this individual is in her, early 20s or something like that. And he or she decides to, I want to really, really sharpen my skills. I need to win some championships under my belt. And they decide to go back to compete against, other athletes that are of high school age. Chances are, especially if you've been doing whatever you're competing in for a long time, you're going to dominate. It's going to happen. And not to mention, gender doesn't matter. Now, I don't want to branch off into the pros. If you had a genderless league, how would these athletes be paid? How are you going to distinguish? You're going to wind up having to, throw out the concept of having a franchise player. And that's going to kind of lead into socialism in sports. And that's going to be a different a different discussion. But again, when you're talking about these transgender athletes, just simply wanted to be a part of something, I can only imagine just from the outside looking in. It's a tall task for them. It's a lot of different internal struggles that they're going through. But to even get to that point, that's another struggle by itself. People judging, and again, trying to determine what's going to be the appropriate time to make that transition. And this is just me trying to, I'm trying to speak on this from the outside looking in without me being offensive. But again, this is just me bringing up what a lot of other people just bring up. My opinion really don't matter. I could say just ban all, just ban everything. I can go either way with it for my own reasons. But I would draw the line myself. As far as female athletes and male athletes competing in certain contact sports. And I'll go ahead and kind of share it. My biggest concern with biological male and biological female competing in the same sport, my concern would be especially in football. I don't want to see it. Nothing against females. If you're gonna if you want to participate, what really should happen, and I'm speaking specifically on football, and these other sports would matter as well, but in football, it's too physical of a sport. Evolution has not come far enough to where, the average female football player, whoever she may be, is going to be comparable with a male. In other words, a 200-pound male football player who, let's say he's on let's say he's a free safety, and you put another female out there, and she can even be the same size, weight, and everything, put her at that same position. Chances are she can still get hurt. The athleticism, the strength, and obviously, at, let's say, starting at mainly the college level, that's when these differences really show. What would happen if you were to put a female, and a very talented one at that, at running back, and you get one of these 300-pound linemen to tackle her like he would another man? A lot of these guys, they tackle to hurt somebody. The sport is very violent. And so this is where I'm going to get into all the other different liabilities. Period. Like, there's too many things that can go wrong. I mean, just think of just something real simple. Let's say, going back to that lineman tackling a female football player, and he lands on top of her. The fact that you have a male on top of a female in that sport, somebody can cry sexual assault. Somebody is going to cry out, that is, and say she was done wrong. She was touched inappropriately. You'll never see a female football player play center, because guess where the quarterback have to place his hands when she hikes the ball? Everything is wrong with that. I don't see why you would have that one female who would want to be amongst all of those males to begin with. I don't want to see it. And, to be honest, I don't care if she's the fastest athlete on that team. I don't want to see it. Because the way a bunch of males, and with all that testosterone, the way they behave when they're all together, then you suddenly have this one female or two amongst all that. That's when their worst behaviors come out. Now, we all know this. How often we read about these football players getting in trouble, especially those who assault females. It just take that one male player. He decides to tap on the backside and then do that on national television. And see what kind of outrage that will spark. I have all the respect in the world for female athletes. I really do. This is really another one of those discussions that I would talk about separately at any time, But I just had to put that out there. This is just me speaking on, what I don't want to see. Because I think I'm going to say a lot of us remember that one female college football player, if you want to call her that, Sarah Fuller. Nothing against her. I don't even know her for playing soccer. What the University of Vanderbilt did, in my opinion, was a publicity stunt. I never liked that they put it out there on the field like that. I felt like they just put her in a position to just troll every football fan out there. Because I want to tie in something else with Sarah Fuller. She had on the back of her helmet, "Play like a girl." Right? And you have all of these female supporters backing that up. When I saw that, I had to ask out loud, what is she doing? Why is she doing it? I'm not saying it was her idea, but, she displayed it, and to me, it just didn't look good. Because basically that's all it was. It was just an opportunity to just troll all the football fans out there who's used to seeing traditional football. But that has actually created, another set of problems for those who are trans, because you want these women playing football with all these guys, trying to push for this, which for some they think is not a big deal. And I'll just explain it to you why I don't want to see it. It's too many liabilities. Bad things can happen. But now all of a sudden, when these guys do play like a girl, and they're literally transitioning themselves to play like girls, now it's another problem. So which problem do you really want? Do you want the Sarah Fuller problem? Or do we really want these guys to play like girls? And unfortunately, most of those guys who play like girls, they've broken records and all those things. And unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, I don't know which one to say, those records are there to stay. I don't think they're going to vacate any of those records that were broken by biological men who has transitioned to being females. So, which problem do you want? And that goes for the female activists out there, the feminists out there. Which problem do you actually want? Do you want men to play like girls or not? When it comes to football, I do not want women to play like boys. If anything, there should be a push, and this could even be a slogan, it's our thing. As in, why aren't there enough females playing football to have your own league, to do your own thing? Because I know when a bunch of females are together, they behave in a certain way. And just let that be understood. Equal competition. I want to see females compete against females. I want to see males compete against males. And even if you're trans, everybody has to be one and the same. Trying to combine everything is just not the way it should work out. Now, I don't know if you heard about this sport. I've always seen it on YouTube, but this is popular, I'm just going to say overseas. It's this slapping competition. And it's just what it is. Both individuals get a chance basically just to slap the hell out of each other. And the person who's still standing wins. Or at least until, the other person gives up. So, what if we decide to mix all that up? What if we have a male against a female? Slapping competition. All right? Doesn't matter who goes first. But let's just say ladies first. The lady smacks the guy, as hard as she can. And now it's that guy's turn. Now he slaps her as hard as he can. Even if that guy loses, the second he put his hands on that woman, because if you do the exact same thing out here on the streets, just like I'm walking right now, that's an assault charge. But it's not going to be looked down upon as much if it was two individuals of the same gender. I'm going to leave it at that. That's why, again, equal competition. Equal competition, it means just that. I want to see two individuals or two different teams equally matched. Every once in a while, I could take on a David versus Goliath type, match. But some things is just too much. Too much. And so, again, these transgender athletes, you got to feel for them. Because there is no winning solution, unfortunately. I don't think most of society is going to accept it, even if some are willing to. It's risky, even if you were to start that transitioning period for these individuals at a very young age. I'm talking 5 and 6 years old. Because if somebody like, let's say myself, decide 2 weeks from now I'm going to be an athlete of the opposite sex, but yet I get to actually keep all of my parts. I just simply identify. That's a problem. When these guys get arrested, where do you house them? And I'll tell you right now, I'm not housing individuals who decide to identify as the opposite sex with, the opposite sex. If I was in that position, it won't happen. And people would just have to hate me for that. You can write me as many times as you want to. Not doing it. In prison or in jail, not doing it. You're going to be housed either with the individuals who's exactly like you. In other words, I would house you with someone. If you're born a male and you transition into a female, you're going to be housed next to someone who's also born a male and has transitioned to a female. Period. There's a reason why, again, we have these separate divisions, conferences. It's a reason why we have different leagues of different levels. And gender is a part of that. Got to be fair. You got to be fair. These Sarah Fullers out there, I'll say it, I don't want to take away from her. I'm pretty sure she had fun, trotting on the football field and all that stuff, kicking the football and all that, but stick to soccer, because nobody was talking about, just so happened, nobody was talking about the athletes who actually made it before her. Because, speaking of Sarah Fuller, I think her uniform is in the Hall of Fame for some reason. I don't know if those other females' uniform are in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. And personally, I don't care. Because I think it's a responsibility for all the other future females to want to participate. These schools got to push to have a female football team. I'm leaving it at that. I don't want to see male and female football players on the same field, period. It's not up to me, but just be glad it's actually not up to me. This is what people could be mad at me, just for putting it out there like that, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I'm not interested in it. Now, if it was all females competing, that's equal competition. They could be as violent against each other as they want to be. That would be something I can appreciate watching. That, just like UFC. I happen to be a fan of watching the female MMA fighters over the males. I got a lot of, favorite fighters. I've grown to really respect Amanda Nunes. I've always been a fan of Chris Cyborg. I've even watched documentaries on Chris Cyborg, But between those two, they're my top favorite fighters. If I was to actually meet them in person, I would want them to sign my gloves, before anybody else. I still respect all the other fighters before them. Even Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, all those female fighters. But I don't want to see even my top favorite fighters compete against any male. Because to me, that's assault. Because had the venue been on the streets, that's exactly what it would have been. So I'm not trying to see that. I want equal competition across the board. For those who don't like it, you don't have to. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, I don't want you to agree with me, because if you disagree, if you agree with me just because, then, it kind of shows that you don't really have your own opinion. I don't want you to come across as a follower. It's good to disagree, because a lot of things I disagree with. And so I just hope, through all this, I just hope somehow this country get back on its feet, because I think these are very confusing times right now. A lot of people trying to figure out who they are, not just with the gender thing, but they're just trying to figure out who they are, what they want to do. I don't know if it's just about them not being around enough positive role models. People just telling them right. You got to help these kids out. You got a lot of kids out there who's very confused, and they're reaching out. And so my own hashtag would be, if I was to put something out there, equal competition, if there isn't one already. Because that's how I'm going to end this, equal competition, Don't talk to me about anything else. Equal competition. If it ain't equal, it ain't right.